Hey everyone, I'm Jessica Miller Merrell. I'm the founder of Workology and the creator of the ACE the HR exam. Today, we are going to be talking about intellectual property and how it affects our work policies. I know it's a difficult topic and it's easy for us to get mixed up, especially as HR pros. This isn't something that we deal with every single day. The World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, defines intellectual property as creations of the mind, inventions, literary and artistic works, symbols, names, images, and designs used in commerce. The WIPO divides intellectual property into two different categories. It includes industrial property, which includes inventions and patents, trademarks and industrial designs, and copyright, which includes literary and artistic works, such as a video like this. And novels, poems, films, musicals, paintings, photographs, all the pretty things. In the workplace, we're primarily going to encounter intellectual or industrial property, but copyright may come into the picture depending upon what industry we're in. So today, I'm really excited to talk with an expert who knows all these things and can share with us in just a few minutes, get us up to speed so that we have access to this information and can talk intelligently or be able to pass our HR certification exam. I'm pleased to have Alex Montague join us today to talk about why intellectual property is important to human resources. Alex is a founding partner of his law firm, which is dedicated to the practice of intellectual property law, international commercial transactions, and new media, commercial and corporate law. He's also the founder, and I can't wait to hear about this, of TranquilLawyer.com, which aims to help those in the legal profession better handle stress through meditation. And who doesn't need a little bit more meditation and less stress in their lives? So Alex has been an arbitrator on a number of cases before the International Chamber of Commerce and also serves as a sought after speaker at international conferences on a wide variety of intellectual property, business, and legal matters. He received his JD with honors from Harvard Law School, a BA, as well as an MA in law from the University of Cambridge, where he received double first-class honors, as well as an undergraduate degree from Princeton University. You have been very busy, my friend. He is the author of a business book, Intellectual Property, Money and Power in the New Era. Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be here with you today.
I'm gonna ask my first question. I'm gonna shut up and let you do the talking because I am not an expert in any means in this area. So I want to ask you first, why is it so important for HR professionals to understand the laws like intellectual property that we might encounter on a daily basis?
You know, I think it's very important today for HR professionals in particular to understand because these intellectual property is the currency of our time, and failure to understand can lead to very significant loss of rights and financial ramifications. And I think I'll demonstrate this with an example. You might remember the Bratz doll. It was a doll that became really famous about, 15 years ago, and it had sales of over $1 billion. Now, this doll was the subject of a multi-million-dollar litigation between Mattel and MGA. Why is that? Because the designs for the doll were done by a Mattel employee on his off hours at home. He took the designs over to MGA, who made the doll and started to sell it. It became a huge success and it sold over $1 billion. Mattel wasn't happy about this. They went to court against MGA claiming, wait a minute, he was our employee when he did the designs. And all the inventions that he made at the time belonged to us, Mattel. So this litigation dragged on for about 4 years, and each side had $100 million in legal fees. So, this is an HR issue. Do you know what I mean? This is an intellectual property issue, but it's also an HR issue. This is hugely important. HR should know if an employee is making designs like this at home. right? And the HR of the hiring company should also understand a little bit about what this employee is bringing over. So I think it's really, really important for HR people to understand this. It can't be emphasized enough.
So what was the verdict here? Did the employee get to keep all the profits even, or what happened?
So here's the thing, that the litigation was between the two companies, right? Because the
Oh, okay.
employee took the designs over to MGA, and then MGA made it and sold it. So that the fight was between the two companies. And in the end, Mattel lost, but it took several years. There was several different jury trials. You don't want to be in that position. And there's a very easy fix to this type of thing, so you don't end up there. But you have to know what you're doing.
Well, and that's why we have experts like you, right? So let's talk first about independent contractors. How do they factor into this? Are they the same as regular employees when it comes to intellectual property law?
Yeah, independent contractors are a little bit different than employees when it comes to intellectual property law, because under especially when it comes to copyright, under the Copyright Act, but in general, an employee that makes something in the course of his or her own employment, and we can talk about what that means, but in general, his or her inventions belong to the company, belong to his employer, without anything in writing. That's just by law. Now, that's not the case with an independent contractor. If you hire an independent contractor to make your website for you, and if you don't have a written agreement that says that all the intellectual property rights are being assigned to you, then the contractor will own the intellectual property rights to the website. So you need to be really very careful, because you need to do this in writing. Right? So with an independent contractor, you need to have a written agreement that says, I'm paying you and you are giving me all the intellectual property rights.
Interesting. I wonder how many of us actually do that. I would say probably not. And when I think about all the freelancer gig workers that are out there, this might be a step that's getting overlooked.
Yes, it definitely is. And, again, that's why I think it's important for HR people to at least know the basics and to know when to start asking questions, and to say, look, I understand you're an independent contractor. Do we have an agreement? If not, let's get legal involved. Let's get someone involved.
I want to back up just a sec. So let's go back to an employee, and let's just assume that an HR leader has heard that somebody's working on something, maybe after hours. Maybe they're a programmer or coder, and they're doing something similar, but they don't have a lot of information. How should HR approach a situation like this?
Yeah, so HR should definitely consult with legal at that point, because that's exactly what happened in the Mattel situation, in that there wasn't proper consultation there. So HR in that situation must bring this to the attention of someone in legal, and then they need to talk to the employee and see what he's doing. If indeed if his role is important for the company, if his designs or if the technology that he's designing could be important to the company, they need to know what he's doing. They also need, most companies now have this, but you need to have a buttoned up non-disclosure agreement, and that with all your employees, that spells this out, that anything that you create in outside hours belongs to the company. With your key employees, you should definitely do that.
I think that's great advice. What other things are we missing here? You're the expert. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I think that you need to also be careful on the other side. So what I'm talking about is, if you're HR and you're hiring someone in, right, you need to be careful that they haven't signed something, or they're not breaching their former employer's intellectual property rights. So there was a case about a decade ago, Thomas English muffins, and there was an executive who was going over, and he had signed an NDA, and apparently he was one of the few people who knew how to make these muffins, how to make the holes in the muffins. And anyway, the company went to court to stop him from using his knowledge, his intellectual property at the new employer. And the court gave an injunction, meaning an order that he's not allowed to do this. And so the new employer actually withdrew the offer. So, right. So I think that as an HR person, you need to at least know to ask some questions. Like, have you signed something? What have you signed? There are non-compete agreements that an employee can sign that says, they're not going to compete. But there are also these types of non-disclosure agreements that are different, like this Thomas English muffin case, that deal with important trade secrets. So as an HR person, you really need to be aware on both sides when your employees are leaving, but also when you're looking to hire a new employee.
Especially with key people. I mean, I keep what's coming top of mind as you're talking is like the secret recipe for Coca-Cola, right? Like there's only certain people who have access to this, and we need to make sure that we have the right legal documents
right.
Signed by that employee, so they don't take the secret Coca-Cola recipe somewhere else.
Correct. Now, the thing is that the secret for Coca-Cola has been around for a century. The problem is that technology is changing so rapidly, and sometimes new inventions are coming up every day by some very unknown young people. I mean, when the Bratz Doll case started, I don't think Facebook was even Facebook. Do you know what I mean? I mean, technology is changing so quickly, so it's difficult to know. So you have to have a policy in place to really, especially with these with the new sort of tech companies, and you need to have a policy in place so that all of your employees sign the right documents. And if you are hiring in someone and they're in a sort of tech or design or some type of a role like that, you should ask these questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about trade secrets. So the Uniform Trade Secrets Act has been enacted in 47 states, but employers should be taking certain steps to protect confidential information, especially from competitors. What do you think we should consider in regard to confidentiality in contracts?
I think that companies and employers should not rely on the Trade Secrets Act. I think that a properly drawn up confidentiality agreement, a lot of people refer to them as NDAs, should be put in place and signed. Now, in the context of an employer-employee situation, those confidentiality agreements are usually quite broadly drafted, and include an assignment of all the intellectual property rights in any inventions that the employee creates, whether, at the workplace or at home. That's what you should, as an employer, that's what you would want. So you'd want to get them to sign that. You would certainly also want to get your independent contractors to sign these types of documents. Now, this really, a lot of times I've seen this fall through the cracks. Now, I deal with a lot of companies, and I think that, HR really doesn't, the HR function doesn't always deal with independent contractors, right? So it's the business that hires the independent contractors. HR is dealing with the employees, but, still at least understanding, because a lot of times nowadays, employees are coming in the form of an independent contractor. They're coming in as a 1099, or they're coming in as through an employment agency that is just acting as an employment agency. And you see what I'm saying? They're coming in like
Yes.
that. So, the agreement that they're not technically an employee of the company, you see, but HR is still involved in getting them hired. So in that situation, I think that HR's role is to understand that these employees / independent contractors have signed the right agreements.
I'm glad that you're mentioning the non-disclosure agreements, because I feel like sometimes, well, those are really getting overlooked, because the idea of the non-compete has been, in my experience anyway, there's a lot of, it doesn't stick. But the non-disclosure agreement is a separate document, legal document from that can protect an employer similarly, but differently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there is a difference between a non-compete and a non-disclosure. Non-disclosure agreements are enforceable. Non-competes run into problems, as you've said, because they need to be what we call narrowly drafted. So if you have a very broad non-compete, it's possible that, in the end, it's not going to be enforceable, or it's what we call redlined. It's not going to be enforceable in the way that you want it to be. So you need to have that non-disclosure agreement. You can't just rely on non-competes.
A lot of times in my HR experience, we would have the employees sign the non-compete. And then if they went to a competitor, we would just draft a letter just to scare them a little bit. So we would make sure that they weren't taking customers or clients, but we knew that there really wasn't anything that we could do.
Well, I mean, that's the case I told you about. There is sometimes and especially if it's properly documented, as it was in this case, the Thomas English Muffin case, right? If they sign the right agreements and you have the documentation that this is an executive that has confidential information that's important to the company, there is something you can do. Obviously, it costs money to go to court and get an injunction, but if it's important enough, the point is here that if you don't have the signed documents, if you haven't done the work, you don't even have a shot at getting an injunction. You see what I mean? But
absolutely,
you don't even have a shot at that letter will mean nothing. But if you do, then that letter. And by the way, what happened here is that the employer actually withdrew their offer, right? Because
I feel like the muffin company or this particular example, like this is definitely a competitive advantage that makes this muffin better than others. I mean, as far as I'm not an expert on them, but I am a enjoyer. I partake in those things. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that this is particularly important for sort of smaller mid-sized companies. Maybe have just one HR professional who's really busy, wearing a lot of different hats, trying to do a lot of different things, and it can get very easily overlooked. So I think, classes like this or programs like this, just as a reminder that, yeah, I know that you've got a million things on your to-do list, but hey, don't forget this too,
at least an overview, so there can be some awareness, and then they can make a decision like how they want to move forward with some of the advice that you've given. But most importantly, they need to talk to legal counsel. Well, let's talk a little bit about tranquillawyer.com. I understand it's for legal professionals, which I feel like is a stressful field, but HR people are super stressed right now. Let's talk a little bit about that and maybe walk us through some of the principles.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So it's Tranquil Lawyer is my passion, and it sort of grew out of my many years of meditation and mindfulness practice, where I sort of realized that, God, I've just been living in stress and not even knowing it. I mean, you get to a point where, you just jump from one stressful situation to another, to another, to another, and it sort of overtakes your life. And you don't know anything different. So what this what I did is I designed this website, and it's really for everyone. I called it the Tranquil Lawyer because I'm more familiar with how stress affects lawyers with a specific way, but stress affects all of us, and HR professionals are not excluded from that. So these practices, meditation and mindfulness, are designed to bring an awareness to you, to all of us, so that we can see reality as it is, rather than through the distortions and fears of our mind. And the more we learn to approach the world that way, the more we will relax into life. You know, people think of relaxation as, oh, I want to go to the beach. I want to, I don't know, I want to lie down, you name it. But those things are not relaxation, because let's say you go to the beach where you take your mind with you. If it's a stressed mind, that mind is going to be just as stressed on that beach. So you need to train your mind how to relax. And that's what this website is aimed to do. It's a
I love
skill,
it.
you can learn it,
Well, and you're absolutely right. When you're stressed, you don't even know it. Like, you're living in it, and you just don't, until you step away and do relax, that you're like, holy cow, what was happening? I was so stressed.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. And it's called raising awareness and self-awareness. So these practices, meditation, you don't need to do it for very long. I mean, you could just 15, 20 minutes a day. And it's designed to just sit there with your own thoughts and look at your own mind, see what's going on there. Most of us have no idea. That voice in your head that's constantly going? Sometimes there are two of them. I mean, what is it saying? And do you believe it? Have a look at the site, and there are some useful articles, and got one or two videos on there. It's not just for lawyers, it's for everyone. I highly recommend it.
Well, I am a believer in meditation, and the importance of taking time to just be in your own thoughts and be in your own mind. It's definitely something that's helped me, and is definitely something that we talk a lot about in our ACE the HR exam course. I even have a guided meditation for students who are experiencing test anxiety. So it's definitely something that we need more of.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I want to direct people to tranquillawyer.com to be able to get more resources on mindfulness, on meditation, how to relax and clear your mind and just be in your own thoughts. Thank you so much, Alex, for talking to us about tranquillawyer.com, but also giving us and sharing with us a little bit about intellectual property. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great pleasure being here with you today.
Well, that was Alex, and my name's Jessica Miller Merrell. I'm the founder of Workology, and you can learn more about the different resources and information and support and training that we offer for HR professionals by going to workology.com. Have a great day. Take some time for yourself, clear your head, and don't stress about intellectual property law now that we've got experts like Alex to help show us the way.
Thank you.